Hey everybody, what's up? It's all going to be about remembering the 9/11. So I do have a flight video, but I didn't want to put a flight video up today just because I didn't want to. And if there's ads on this, I apologize. I'm trying not to monetize this video either. So just wanted to share, take a moment to say, remember what happened that day. I wasn't there in New York, but I was working that day, and definitely, I vividly remember, what happened and everything like that. So I thought I'd share my story with you guys. And shakiness, it's on a stand here connected to the window while I'm driving, so I'm not holding the camera. I've got both hands. So anyway, on that morning, I was at the time living in Phoenix, Arizona, and I was working for I apologize for the sun, there's nothing I can do while I'm driving. I was working at American Express, and it was a big call center, and so basically doing like customer support, answering, phone calls, questions, stuff like that. So I remember I wasn't quite on break yet. I was still, but I remembered somebody coming by and saying that there was a plane that had flew into one of the World Trade Center buildings. And so I thought that was really weird, because like I'm just sitting there working, so I didn't know anything was going on at the time. People were, kind of like, if you work in an office, people are talking, that kind of thing. So they're just saying, yeah, so I was like, I don't know what happened, maybe nobody knew what was going on at the time, so what's up, Greg? Nobody knew what was going on at the time. I thought, okay, maybe the pilot, maybe the sun, maybe, a mechanical issue, who knows, so I was still on break at the time. And then, I guess, I don't remember the exact times, but about an hour later, that's when, or maybe it was less than an hour, I can't remember, it's been so long, but after that, that's when that second plane hit. And I remember more and more people were going on breaks and coming back and saying there was a second flight, and that had hit that second building. And so I was finally, I got on break, and I was watching the TV just like everybody else was that day. And they were still trying to figure out what the heck was going on, and and everything like that. I called home and I made sure everybody was safe, and everything like that. But I remember, usually that call center, it was busy 24/7. I mean, there was calls every day, all day long, in that call center. And after that second plane went and hit the building, I remember it was very eerily quiet throughout the entire call center, which is very unusual. Usually there was, tons of calls in the queue, people, with questions, whatever, and so it was eerily quiet just the whole rest of that day. And I remember everybody at their desk was trying to get onto any news channel that they could, Time Magazine, anything, any local news channels. And, you almost couldn't, because we were overwhelming the network with data, at the time. This was back in, 2001, where, we don't have, the high speed like we do nowadays. Back then, I think the highest speed was maybe like a T1 connection, where now at my house I've got a 1 gig speed, I've even, my phone's probably faster. So, but, you could hardly get the information. I was, texting my family, what's going on, what's, trying to figure out, at the time I was scared and anxious at the time, because I didn't know what was going on. What the heck, are we at war? Is there another country attacking us? What the heck is happening? What's going on? And so then I remember, after work, finally getting home, and watching the news. It was on the news that whole night. I don't think we watched anything else besides that. Probably that, and the next day, the whole next, 2 weeks, it was nothing but, that event. And, I remember, that day after work, and even the next day, I think it was, that, it was very eerie outside because there was absolutely no air traffic. They had grounded all planes. I remember that. And, I do remember that in Arizona, not in Phoenix, but to the west of Phoenix, there's a huge military base out there, and they do have fighter jets. And I do remember, hearing the fighter jets taking off, and flying over, and that's really the only thing that was in the sky, was just the military, that they were making sure everything, and it was a really scary time. But I do remember, the days following, I remember, it went from being scared to more being like just angry, at what had happened. And, it was just kind of sad, that this group of individuals would do this to our country, and I remember that, everybody kind of banded together for that, that little bit of time. I remember after it happened that, you weren't, African American, you weren't Asian American, you weren't Latin American, you weren't anything, you weren't, we were all just Americans, and we all kind of banded together, and that, it's sad to say that event brought us all together, but it did, and it didn't matter whether you lived in California or New York or Florida or wherever, it affected everybody a little bit differently. Obviously the people there in New York, it affected them a lot more, obviously, but, that's just my story of what happened. I remember it. A lot of kids nowadays, anybody pretty much born after 2000, probably won't really remember it. They'll only be able to read it in, history books, and, or online, or on Wiki, or something like that. They'll never really, sorry, the road is bumpy through here. So they will never really, fully really, I think, understand what happened that day, but I do, I was alive at that time, and I remember what vividly happened, and I remember the whole incident, everything, and to this day, kids probably traveling, that are younger, they'll have no idea, why we do some of the things that we do for security, when we're traveling nowadays, and why in some airports you have to take off your shoes, why there's so much more security. I mean, I remember as a kid, my grandparents, if we flew to go see them, we were able to, my grandparents could meet us at the gate, and that just doesn't happen nowadays, and so, yeah, it definitely has forever changed my life. Anybody that was alive at that time, it's impacted your life, and it'll impact, future people's lives as well. So, yeah, I just wanted to share my story. I didn't want to put a flight video out today just because I kind of figured it not disrespectful, but I just wanted people to not forget what happened. I want people to remember what happened that day, so, to some people this is just going to be a normal day, nothing happened, that they don't feel the impact. But for me, I felt the impact directly because working at American Express, we did have an office at the World Trade Center, and a couple of days later we did find out that there were some of that was basically the headquarters, the corporate office, and we did find out that some of those people did pass away, and so that was kind of sad. And I do remember that American Express did make like a book for all the employees, you know, like a tribute book that they distributed to all the employees to kind of share, you know, about the company and this and that, you know, and that was kind of cool. But yeah, for me, I mean, I vividly remember it was just like yesterday, you know. I mean, you know, luckily I didn't get traumatized or anything like that, you know, but I do remember it. It's something that I will always remember. So that's all I have to say. So just you know, just say you know, thank you to all the firefighters and the first responders that helped that day. You know, and you know, my condolences to all the families, you know, that were affected, you know, and they're still being affected. So that's all I wanted to say. And so thank you for watching. Like I said, I just wanted to share my story. And that's all. If this video is, if you see ads on this video, it's not me, it's YouTube putting it up. I don't want to monetize this video because I don't think it would be very nice to make money off of other people's tragedy, you know. So but anyway, thank you guys for watching the video. Thanks for hanging out with me. I will put up a flight video tomorrow as usual. So thanks guys, and as always, let's keep our drones up in the air, flying high, and I'll talk to you guys later. Have an awesome day.